Okay.
Hey. Hey.
Make some noise, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Tom G. Warrior.
Yeah, man.
Go, we can do more oohs than that. Come on! There we go.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, so thank you very much to everyone for joining us on this live episode of Iblis Manifestations. My name is Cheyenne. I'll be the host, and I have the pleasure and the absolute honor of having on stage next to me Mr. Tom G. Warrior, the myth and the legend. So please make some noise, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah. So, Tom, this evening you will be performing a headline show with Triumph of Death, where you'll be performing songs of Hellhammer, all the way from the early 80s. So, how are we feeling, man? What's going through your mind at the minute?
Nothing as usual. What can I say? 45 years ago, when I wrote these songs as a bloody beginner on my instrument, I would have never thought that I would be still invited 45 years later to play these songs internationally. And of course, I owe this to people like you, that this is even possible, and I'm hugely grateful. We were a complete underground organization at the time. We couldn't even afford guitar strings. It was really, we were practicing in a stinky rehearsal room. No money, no fans, no support, no connections. And none of us in Hellhammer would have thought that this music would endure, that anybody would listen to this music to begin with, and that it would endure for like half a century. So it blows my mind, and I feel extremely honored that this is even possible, and that people of all ages are coming to the concerts and to events like this. It's a privilege, and I'm extremely grateful for it.
That's fantastic, man. Did Celtic Frost at any point perform in Barcelona back in the day?
It's not back in the day, but I think we might have done so after the reunion.
After the reunion,
Yeah,
right.
The first time we played Spain was only after the reunion. For some reason, we never made it to Spain during the original existence of the band.
Sure. So obviously that makes this even more exciting then. I mean, how does it feel just bringing Hellhammer songs to Barcelona, Spain, and performing these material all the way from back then? And the kind of, I find, I must be honest, the whole Triumph of Death idea I find absolutely fascinating, you know, especially given that these were songs that never really got to see the light of day in a stage setting for a very long time. And now the fact that you get to actually bring them out to people, and you've obviously kind of tweaked things, you know, the same as you did a lot of the earlier Celtic Frost songs, you know, where it's further down tuned, heavier, and it's a great sound.
Just a tiny bit.
Just a tiny bit, yeah.
Well, we didn't want to stray too much from what Hellhammer sounded like.
Sure.
So we didn't choose the tuning that Triptykon has, for example, or that Celtic Frost had. We're playing them relatively close to the originals, which is down to just a tiny little bit, because I think hearing heavy metal nowadays, you're used to much heavier music than you used to be in the early 80s. And it was much easier to sound heavy in the early 80s. And we just wanted to give it a tiny little tweak to bring the music into the 21st century, but we didn't want to stray too much from the originals.
For sure. And I think when you go and see a band live, I think that kind of sound, you know, you need to have a degree of clarity to create movement, which is essentially what a metal concert should be all about, you know. And I think you've done a great job of finding the balance between preserving that, you know, having been lucky to have actually watched Triumph of Death a number of times, you know, and even watched a sound check, and like seeing that kind of how well those songs cut through. I mean, I don't know, man. I've always got this question for you. Like, what goes to your mind, like playing these riffs, the same riffs that you wrote, you know, and like, is there a part of you that relates to the original initial attitude of how, when they were conceived? Because these were obviously, we have to paint a picture. These were not regular times of like, oh, just a band getting together and playing riffs for the sake of it.
I don't want to create an artificial myth here of Hellhammer, but it was, at the same time, it was quite a mythical time. Heavy metal was freshly rejuvenated through the new wave of British heavy metal, which eventually became the basis of extreme metal, of thrash metal, of black metal. It was the time when all these things started to develop. So it was a very special time to be an aspiring musician to begin with. And then within Hellhammer, all of us had very troubled backgrounds in our private life on many levels. And we met in this shabby rehearsal room as a means of escape from parents and politicians and bosses in our day jobs and all kinds of things. It was also a time of violent youth unrest in Switzerland, where the police would shoot at young people protesting in the street. And these were the circumstances during which we formed Hellhammer. So when we used to meet at this rehearsal room, it was like not just music, it was like us creating our own world without all these people, without all these circumstances, a world that we could, for the first time as young people, form ourselves and start to live a life like we envisioned it, without people telling us you can't do this. Or, I mean, all of us encounter violence countlessly just because the way we looked at the time and because of the circumstances in Switzerland. And also some of us encounter violence in their own families.
Yeah.
So it was really a sanctuary. And to come back to your question, because of this intensity and because it wasn't just a random band and a random time, of course, when I stand on stage and I play these songs, during many songs, I have like a film in my head. I remember how we wrote these songs. I remember under what circumstances we rehearsed them. I remember the stink of the rehearsal room. I remember the extremely tight friendship between me and Steve Warrior, who co-formed Hellhammer with me. And especially in the beginning of Triumph Death, the band has been together now for 6-7 years, but especially during the first few concerts, it was actually sometimes extremely emotional to be on stage and play these songs for the first time live. And at the same time, I missed Steve Warrior, who, if there was a just world, who should have stood next to me performing these songs, but he can no longer play. So there's a million of emotions, and again, being invited to different countries, to Spain, and I mean, we've been all over the globe with Hellhammer's music now, a music that people used to laugh at the time. It blows my mind, and it's a wonderful experience, and it's also, I'm hugely grateful that this is even possible.
It is truly fantastic, really, and also, you know, the fact that the songs actually stand the test of time makes it even more interesting.
Do they?
I think so, yeah. I think you guys will be able to tell for sure for later, but my verdict is absolutely they do, man. We have to give credit to the rest of the band in Triumph of Death as well, of course, for doing such a great job of performing these songs as well.
But you know, the idea to bring these songs to the stage for the very first time is also at the same time very preposterous, because we're talking about the time when thrash metal or black metal wasn't really defined yet. And at that time, it was still very dependent on punk music, and you can hear that. It's extremely simple. It's very simplistic. It basically just lives off aggression and energy, and there's no sophisticated riffs or arrangements. And that's, given that we're playing in the year 2026, where extreme metal has developed into an art form, it's quite preposterous at the same time. And I don't know what made me decide to do this. Sometimes I think very insane to do this. We're going on stage on festivals where like every band has better riffs, has better songs, is more sophisticated. And here we are. Every song of ours consists of like 1 or 2 riffs. It's basically punk.
Yeah.
And I really, you know, we go on stage and we don't know how the people will react to this, because you're a modern audience and you're used to modern extreme metal. And here we come, basically a time capsule, a true time capsule of the early 1980s. And we play extreme metal as it used to be 45 years ago. And it's not something guaranteed that this works.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. You made a really interesting point there. I mean, you say, extreme metal audience, but I think that a lot of people who listen now, if they've either been around for a long time or even like the newer generation, they get to maybe get into extreme metal through like more modern bands, but then everyone seems to kind of gravitate towards to the older stuff. Like I'm sure that there are now, I don't know, maybe like an 18-year-old extreme metal head who's only been listening to metal itself for like 2 years and is now just getting into Celtic Frost or Hellhammer for the first time. That's entirely possible now.
Well, I think that's the beauty about the metal scene. In the music industry, to use the evil word, heavy metal is really a special niche. And I know it's a tower cliche, but heavy metal is kind of like a family. In spite of all the realities, in spite of all the commercial leanings, it's still a fraternity, it's still a family. And in heavy metal, for example, you can still sell records because people buy records. And there's many other aspects that make it very unique in the music industry. And one of these things is that which is something I also found out 20 years ago when we brought back Celtic Frost. Martin Hurricane and I would often discuss, while we were working on the Monothis album, we were discussing, will we only have people our age in the audience who want to relive their youth, or will there also be young people who are curious?
Yeah.
And of course, we could only find out by going on stage. And then we did the last Celtic Frost World Tour, and the audiences were extremely mixed. There was teenagers, and then up to people our age.
Yeah,
and that was a fantastic experience, and I feel very lucky. It remained like this with Triptykon, and also when we go on stage with Triumph of Death, the age of the audience is extremely mixed, and I think this is really due to the roots of heavy metal being just kind of a different music, a music that connects you more than maybe other genres might do.
Yes.
It's not a music that's trend based. It's a music that lives of other things, of again energy and things like that, and definitely no age limit either way.
You made a really interesting point earlier when you said that when you were in the rehearsal room, that was essentially your escape from the real world, where you said from parents or politicians and just the overall thing of the world, which coincidentally, obviously, given the circumstances of Switzerland at the time, that was a unique period, a mythical period, as you put it very wisely. But I also think that there's a nature of things, where still to this day, people are still very much haunted by like what they see, like, I don't know, on social media or on the news and things like that. Do you think, given the radical nature of some of these songs and what kind of birthed them, do you think that the fact that people still show up to these gigs, the fact that they still come to these concerts, is because it is very much that escape? So just as it was for you in the rehearsal room back in 1982, it's the same now for these audiences in 2026 attending to hear these songs.
I think that's definitely an aspect of it, absolutely.
Yeah.
And another aspect might be that these songs are very pure. They're very naive in a good way. As I said, extreme metal had only been just formed and was developing, and we didn't write these songs with some kind of concept in our head. This is how extreme metal has to be, and we have to compete with this album, and the record company says we should do this. We were just a bunch of young guys writing these songs. They're very honest. Of course, they're limited because we couldn't yet really play our instruments, but these songs are totally pure, totally honest. It's extreme metal without any bias from the outside, and maybe you can still feel that. Hopefully,
for sure. Would you say that the music of Hellhammer was ahead of its time?
Oh, Jesus Christ, that's not up to me to judge. That would be preposterous.
but given the fact that how it was reviewed and received, because again, people now, you walk around a festival, even a festival where you're not playing, even a festival you're not there, there's still Hellhammer and Celtic Frost shirts everywhere. Okay, that's a given. It's your riffs are essentially a part of the foundation of the genre that we all very much love and respect and appreciate. You know, and I don't think one single person here would argue with that. But I think that. Don't you think it's interesting how negatively, I suppose, it was received at the time, and yet this is the kind of, without putting it on a pedestal, just looking at it even objectively, it does have a legendary status.
Yeah, but we weren't the only ones who played heavy or very heavy and got really negative feedback. Look at Venom, look at Discharge, and even Motorhead, who had become quite big at the time. Mm-hmm. I remember reading really, really scathing reviews of Motorhead's concerts and albums at the time.
Which is preposterous.
I think that the lingering 1970s heavy metal scene, which was still dominant in the early 1980s, was just not yet prepared for this extremity. I mean, you have to see around the turn of from 1970 to 1980s, the singers that were famous were people like Ronnie James Dio with multi-octave voices and operatic metal, which of course was phenomenal. But that was the metal that you could hear on the radio or that would sell. That was, you know, and maybe at the most extreme level, it was AC/DC. And then all these new bands came, starting with Motorhead and then Venom and Discharge and us. I think people were just a bit overwhelmed that somebody had opened the gates and that heavy metal had taken the do-it-yourself attitude of punk. And even people who couldn't sing like Ronnie James Dio, like me, said, no, I want to have a go at this. And we want to have a voice too. We want to do music too. We can't reach this level, but you know, we have this energy and we have something to say. Mm-hmm. Kronos and also especially Discharge, who are pioneers, and Hellhammer owes a lot to Discharge, as you can hear tonight.
Great band.
I think that the world as a whole first needed to get used to that idea. You know, first it was punk, and then heavy metal basically stole that attitude that everybody can do heavy metal. Mm. You don't need to be a musical genius if you actually have something to say. And it took a while for people to survive the shock and get their heads around to that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just on that point as well. So a couple of years ago, when you and I were doing our first podcast episode together, you said something on there that has absolutely stuck with me since, and you just kind of very briefly touched upon it there. You said to me that heavy metal is originally an attitude, which I think that is just so spot on. That's such an accurate way to describe what it is that what we do and the music that we listen to and also create. So can you maybe like try and dissect that for us a little bit? You know, like what do you mean when you say heavy metal is originally an attitude? I like to put him on the spot.
If I do this, everybody here is going to think, oh, look, it's the old guy speaking.
I'm not that old.
The thing is, I'm absolutely convinced that heavy metal is an attitude and needs to be an attitude. I was drawn to this music because I went to concerts and I saw musicians smash guitars and stick it to everybody, you know. It was just like energy speaking. And that's what other musical genres didn't do. You know, I saw other bands, Yes and whatever, which were phenomenal, but they didn't do that. But in heavy metal, the gates were open and it was an attitude. It showed that you don't have to bend to society, that you can create your own music and you can scream in the face of those who try to make your life miserable. Mm-hmm. And you can unleash an energy on your instrument. I mean, to this day, and I'm not kidding you, I mean, I've been doing this for 45 years, but when I plug in my guitar, even at the rehearsal room, and we turn it on, it's like a fucking drug.
Yes.
That goes through every vein of mine. And that's what I mean with attitude. And here comes the old guy part. I sometimes miss that nowadays. The heavy metal has of course now 50, 60 years of development. If you also add the 70s hard rock. And it has become very sophisticated, and there's phenomenal musicians out there. There's musicians like half my age or even younger who outplay me by 1,000,000 times. And I mean, what they do on their guitar, on their drums, on their bass is just mind-blowing. They're phenomenal. But at the same time, when I see this, I sometimes wonder, where's the energy? Where's the anarchy in this? One doesn't have to preclude the other. And some of these musicians are so good, and they have such expensive experience that they're playing, and it's like they're having gloves on and they're touching their silk instruments. And that's not the way I live heavy metal. And I think that's an essential part of heavy metal. And I'm not saying this against these musicians. As I said, I'm in awe of them. But it doesn't hurt to combine the two. I'm all for... Martin and Eric Ain and I in Celtic Frost strove with every album to become better musicians. I'm the first one to say that, But what we also try to preserve the anger, the anarchy.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Not letting anybody lock us into something. No screaming it out. That's why we became heavy metal musicians. And I think it's absolutely important that young people who start a band nowadays don't forget about that. And occasionally take their guitar and fucking throw it into the amps, because that's heavy metal. If you want to do something else, there's plenty of other genres where they don't do such things,
I think I see exactly where you're coming from with that. And I suppose the point you're making is that, it is about the attitude. It is about the outlet of expression. I always called it musical shadow work. To me, it's kind of like this music is about tapping into the shadow and the darker part of our psyche, and that's not to become a monster, but to rather exercise the monster that exists in every single one of us.
Well, it's also a strange cultural shift. For me, having grown up in the 1970s and early 80s, heavy metal was very much an expression, as I said, of anarchy, of rebelling against structures and people who want to inhibit you, be it politicians or parents or bosses or teachers and whatever is there. And if I look at the world today, problems have not receded. There's just as many or maybe even more problems. The world is completely fucked right now. But I don't see as much rebellion right now. Is it because we have access to everything? I mean, we have access to internet and games and cars and everything, and we can fly everywhere we want here in the West. We're totally free people. Is that what is our drug that helps us to survive the fucked up world we're living in? Back then, it used to be the music. Music was the expression of the frustration and the expression of the rebellion. We were under no illusion. We didn't think we could change something, but we also didn't want to sit on our mouth. We didn't want to remain silent. We wanted to say something. And our audience gave this back. Our audience also said something.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss that sense of rebellion, because it would be appropriate nowadays. Look at the world. It's probably as important nowadays as it's never been. And I think heavy metal would actually profit from that. To have a little more anarchy in it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think because then it stops serving the purpose of the outlet that it is. If you're not doing that, I think
like a talking museum.
Well, it's a very wise point, man. Because look, if you kind of take away the outlet perspective, that's why I always say to bands, okay, look, selling merch is cool, playing gigs is cool, but it's there's a reason why we fucking started to do this in the first place. Okay, and that was out of a need and an urge. You have to play this music, otherwise you'll go insane, or I don't know, maybe you'll hurt yourself or somebody, you know, like to me, that's at least what this music has always represented. Okay. Especially like growing up in Iran and like dealing with that kind of a totalitarian environment. I don't want to lean into that too much in this discussion, but I relate to that on a very deep personal level, because if it wasn't for metal, I don't know what kind of a fucking life I would have been living. Okay. And it's not to say, it's not even necessarily talking about financial problems, but like just having meaning in life.
Your existence.
Yeah.
On every level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think what makes it so interesting, you know, I mean, I commend you so much for the fact that 45 years in, you're still doing this, but the fact that your attitude remains intact. And I don't know, man, like, what keeps you going? Like, what keeps you attached to the same path, regardless of all the obstacles that come with it?
Well, you know, my girlfriend is quite tired of my attitude. But I'm glad that you understand it. What keeps me going? What else am I going to do? I'm not going to, you know, it's too late now to become a banker. What keeps me going? It's I have convinced myself that this is my calling. And I have a lot of respect for the word calling. It's a big word. And so I say this semi-humorously. But yeah, it has become my calling. If it wasn't for music like you, I don't think I would be around, or my life would have taken a far darker turn much earlier. Music was my savior, and it became my life and my career, thanks to you guys. And I shaped my music, and my music shaped me. And which is a phenomenal thing, but it's also that if my music was taken from me, I would no longer be able to exist, I think. I really think I wouldn't see any sense in my life. So what else am I going to do? I love music. Even after 45 years, and I don't know how many million gigs, I still love going on stage. Like I said, when I plug in my guitar, even after having done it a million times, it's a drug. And it's a beautiful drug. It's not one of the destructive drugs. So if in the process of doing so, I can give some other people pleasure, it's the best of both worlds. I mean, we're all in it together. Yeah?
Absolutely, man. Oh, this is going to be a very personal question. And
Again,
I'm gonna put you on the spot. This is what I do best, by the way. And you do best responding, so it works.
it's just because we know each other. Otherwise, you'd be dead now.
Yes. So let's say, like, given
The guy would squash me like a fly. Look at this.
no, but yeah, I don't even want to go there. But the thing that I'm curious to hear is, if you were given the opportunity to go back to, let's say, 1982 and speak to Tom as who you are now, what would that conversation look like?
I've been asked this recently, I think, in some interview that I can't remember right now because I'm old.
Well, very relevant now, so now I asked it.
My answer in that interview was I would tell Tom not to be such a cunt to certain people. And you know, there's the other side. Of course, it's a celebration in a way to be a musician. This was my teenage dream, and coming from Switzerland, no connections, no money, no nothing. I didn't think it would become reality, and people like you have made it a reality, and I've been a musician for 45 years, which is something to celebrate. It's something wonderful, but Martin Erikane and I, in the early days, were so driven because we had so many obstacles to face and because everything was stacked against us. Like I said in the beginning, I mean, we had no money to even buy guitar strings, guitar picks. Everything was underground, everything was DIY, and then there was the outside world who fought us every step of the way. Mm-hmm. So we became quite radical and quite fanatical. And we were immensely driven in our vision for Hellhammer, Celtic Frost, And we wouldn't let anybody stop us. Once we had found each other, we fueled each other. And it was easier, of course, to do it, the two of us, than do it individually. But that also sometimes meant that I probably stepped over some people in a very ruthless way, because I had this immensely driven, radical vision. And if you're celebrating, you've said many very nice things about me and calling me a visionary and whatever. So if you celebrate that, I also have to be honest and say, I'm a human being and I'm far from perfect. And sometimes I look back and this fanaticism probably also hurt one or the other persons at the time. And if the now Tom could go back to the young Tom, he would probably say, take it a little easier with some people. You will still get there. But,
Immediate death sentence.
So everything has two sides. Mm-hmm. And it would be very one-sided to just talk about the good times here. There was a price to pay for us and for others too. Others made mistakes too, of course, in our circle of people. But mm-hmm. I would like to address this here totally honestly. The old Tom will probably say, chill a little bit.
Mm. That's fair enough. That's good. That's valuable, man. Because
it's reality.
Couldn't we all take a page out of that book?
Yeah. Yeah, I often think about that. And of course, I would also go to the young Tom and say, you're on the right path. Don't stop. You will succeed. You will become a professional musician. Even though everybody says your music stinks and stuff, but eventually people will listen to it. And so the young Tom did a lot of things right without knowing it, of course. But as I said, there's also the other side, the slightly darker side.
Yeah.
I mean, to be a band at the time out of Switzerland and being thrown into the deep end, for example, we came out of little farm villages, and then the next day we found ourselves basically competing in London against massively more professional bands, or in New York, and record companies that had decades of experience, expecting this and that from us. We had to grow up like within 1 minute.
Yeah.
And this created a lot of radicalness, a lot of fanaticism. And that energy is not always positive.
Mm. Absolutely. Well, I think that's what makes it good, is that, you give a home to those feelings, and I think because the thing is as well, I sometimes wonder if you weren't a certain way, you maybe wouldn't have written the same riffs.
Absolutely.
Or come up with the same lyrics.
Well, one could justify it all by saying, well, yeah, you're successful in Celtic Frost, everybody knows, blah, 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 so you did the right thing. But, it doesn't hurt to be a little self-critical occasionally.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I think the point...
It was way too easy to just accept the good and ignore the less good.
Yeah, that's it. Shove it under the carpet, as we say. But I think the beautiful thing about that is the fact that darkness, especially the lyrics. I don't know how many people going to Triumph of Death shows have actually read lyrics on the early Hellhammer stuff, man. But
Jesus, I hope they don't, because our especially our English knowledge was very limited at the time, and when I do these songs on stage nowadays, it's cringeworthy sometimes. But
it's the intent that shines through. I think it's rawness and the nakedness of it.
It was proto-black metal.
Yeah,
it's proto-black metal mixed with punk, and it works in that context.
Absolutely. There we go. Well, Mr. Tom G. Warrior, sir, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you again, this time in front of a wonderful live audience in Granollers, Spain, Barcelona. Thank you so fucking much, man.
Always.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, we go.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Question.
Do you want to do questions, Tom?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure, since we're here.
Have it tried.
Sure.
English is not the best, but
Great shirt, by the way.
Thank you very much. You were saying in your book, I haven't read the full of them or of it, but you say, as you speaking before, the vision you had in the 80s about the whole world, because you were facing this all stuff in Switzerland, but was Martin part of the globalizing that vision, so to speak? to make into your songs? I mean, was Martin actually part of globalizing that vision, because you were only in Sweden vision kind of saying?
So I think he's saying, was Martin a part of globalizing the vision for?
No, you guys globalized the vision. We were an underground band in Switzerland, and Martin had a huge part in the development of Celtic Frost, but it was very local. We were a local underground band. And the globalization happened when people like you across the world started giving our music a chance. That's when it became a globalized thing, and when Celtic Frost became an international band. But we started as a tiny little underground organization. The Martin's place in this whole thing was that he came from a very radical religious family, and his rebellion was to form with me a band that was very dark and used occult lyrics and so on. That was basically his revenge on his family. That was his taking his own life and shaping his own life, finally, without his parents telling him what to do, and them being religious fanatics.
Oh my God.
Stifling everything he wanted to do. That was Martin's part, and this anger and this radicalism became part of Celtic Frost. And even though Martin didn't write many songs, but we discussed everything, and this his philosophy became part of everything. But like I said, at that time it was in our rehearsal room, and if you say globalizing it, you guys did that.
By the way, rest in peace, Martin Erikheim. And we should make some noise for Martin as well, guys. All right, we're going to stand up, so let's take a picture all together, guys, okay?
Welcome to Iblis Manifestations.